all it takes to extinguish fragile life. When struck by its lightning, the effect will endure until death. An example of its violent, murderous nature. No matter how many lives are sacrificed, it will never subside, as if the copious amounts of blood it sheds can never be matched.
What's good, ladies and gents? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Today, guys, we're going to be hunting the Astalos today. Now, the Astalos is a very, very, very cool monster, a fan favorite, one of my favorites as well, for a particular reason. Out of the Fated Four, whom of which was in Monster Hunter Generations, where he came from, he was my favorite fight. Not my favorite monster, but my favorite fight. But he was my number 2 favorite monster, with my number 1 being Gammoth. But we may never ever see Gammoth again. Nevertheless, it's not about Gammoth, it's about Astalos. So Astalos is a flying wyvern. It is of the thunder element, and if you want to melt this young man, bring some ice. But we just got some ice, right? Lunagarin, you know what I mean? Bring it. I just spoke the high praises of this monster's weaponry. Lunagarin, that is. Bring it to fight this thing. You're going to have, like, no issues at all. Granted, I had a bit of an issue because, well, it's a switch axe and I'm a lancer, so I was having a tough time actually fighting the monster. Nevertheless, here we go. So you want to do the most damage to this young man, you want to hit him in the head, of course, much like any other monster in the game. I promise I'll let you know when a monster has a very interesting hitbox, so that way you do more damage by hitting it. But for the most part, I gotta tell it like it is. Do the most damage, hit him in the head, bring you some ice element, and you're good to go. So with that out the way, let's talk about what he can and cannot do. So Astalos is a very interesting monster. He has a ton of things about him. He can do a ton of things. He's not like your traditional flying wyvern. Actually, out of all the flying wyverns you've probably fought up until this point, he's the first one to deviate from a lot of the very routine things that flying wyverns tend to do, as means to actually do the damage too. So he does have the run, the run this way, turn around, run this way, turn around, run that way, that are basically all the monsters have. But he does a lot of cool stuff with his new physiology, because he's basically like a dragonfly. So he has a couple of things about him that really stand out. So let's get to the big juices. So first and foremost, he has electric attacks. He doesn't do these electric attacks in the standard fare. Yeah, you would usually see a normal monster do it. He does shoot electrical balls. Now, here's the funny thing. Like, okay, I know this is a video game. I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief here. But when he shoots his electric thunderball, lightning ball thing or whatever, he summons like 4 or 5 other tracking pillars of electricity that come through. You'll see it. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, excuse you? It's kind of weird, but he can do that. It's not super damaging, but it's an attack you have to worry about, because it has a lot of what I like to call, like, area negation, meaning you can't do anything in that space. He pretty much cornered the market on the space in front of him when he does it. So it's pretty tough to actually fight when he kind of does that. But outside of that, he does have his claw slam. So with his claws, his wings, they didn't have claws. See, this is weird. See, monsters like pseudo wyverns have claws. They use their wings because they have their hand attached to it, where he himself doesn't have that, but he still uses it in the same manner. See, totally weird monster. So anyway, he'll use his wings as a means to slap you. Like, he'll slam down, he'll swipe at you with them. It does a lot of damage. It really does do quite a bit of damage. I would warrant against trying to thinking you can thug a hit from it. Outside of actually getting hit by it, what it will do, it will also have this huge knockback. Like, if you get hit with it, it'll like send you flying 10,000, like, pew, you'll be careening all the way across the screen. So it's kind of wonky to kind of get hit by it. You don't want to get hit by that, for sure. Outside of that, he does have the attack he uses the most, which will be his tail. Now, his tail is very interesting. What he'll do is he'll hover in midair, because he's a dragonfly, he can kind of hover. He'll hover in midair, use his tail, and kind of like jab it at you, and then stab it into the ground. Now, the jab at you kind of thing isn't too big, not really much to really worry about, but when he stabs it in the ground, that's when it becomes a bit of an issue. So when he stabs in the ground, you would think, okay, he's not doing anything. If anything, he whipped. It's time for me to come in and catch this stuff. Wrong. what he does and loves to do is once he stabs in the ground, he'll discharge a small area of electricity underneath it, like a dome shape of electricity from his tail. It will bop you if you get too close. I recommend you stay far away from him when he does that. When he does the attack, give him his space. Don't try to go in for extra damage. It's not necessarily worth it unless you have a means to counter that attack, or if you can block it or something like that. So if you can't do those things, I'd recommend you just give him the space when he does it, come back later, or if you have the ability to go in the air, go in there on the young man. But speaking of means to actually get up on him and do the damage and not get bodied, is if you stay up underneath his body, I learned is probably the best bet for you. If you're like, I don't know, like dual blades or switch axe, or somebody who doesn't necessarily have a means to block or counter very often, I would say directly up underneath his body, because a lot, if not all of his hit zones are in front of him and underneath with the tail. But for the most part, he can't hit you if you're directly underneath him. Now, this is a small caveat, I gotta put an asterisk on it. He does have an attack where he'll fly high in the sky and then slam his body down. If he does that, there's no running away from, well, there's no getting up underneath him. He will do immense amounts of damage if you get hit by this, so try not to do it. It's like his big slapper of attack. One last attack I can think of is that he shoots a beam of electricity from his tail. It's very akin to any monster who likes to slam their tail down on the ground. I was about to say Diablos, but I guess you can kind of say Diablos. Diablos can slam his tail on the ground, but imagine doing that, but at the end of the tail, shooting a beam of electricity. So that's for the most part all he takes you truly have to worry about. He has a couple of ancillary things, you know, a couple of things to kind of like attack you here, scratch your back there, so on and so forth, or whatever. But for the most part, that's what you have to worry about. Again, I would recommend you fight up underneath his body, because it's kind of tough to actually fight him if he has so much stuff coming at you from the front end. And the back end isn't 100% safe either, because the tail slam, and the tail slam beam combination, of course. So, outside of that, I will, last but not least, I can't forget, he has a lightsaber. Now, if I'm not mistaken, someone who's more versed in this could probably hit me over the head with this one, but I'm pretty sure the lightsaber came from Bolt Reaver. Quote me on that. Valiant Bolt Reaver? Yes, maybe? Nevertheless, let's talk about the lightsaber. So the lightsaber is two things. One is probably the most dangerous attack that he has. The screen does pan out a little bit when he does it, so you know when monsters do their big slapper, the screen pans out, kind of lets you know they're about to get hit with some juice, so you better watch out. But the screen will pan out. He'll charge his head up a little bit, and then he'll slam his head down on the ground. This huge beam of electricity, it's not like a full beam, but it's like a long arc of electricity will protrude from his forehead, from the horn on his head, and he'll slam it on the ground. Now, this attack has piercing. What does that mean? It means even if you block it, you can take a huge amount of chip, okay? A huge amount of chip. I don't recommend blocking it unless you have like guard up, guard 5, and a heck of a load of defense, because I was streaming and I fought it and then I blocked it and I took like 40% damage for free. So don't block it. It's kind of easy to avoid as well. Again, if you're keeping up with the fact that you stay up underneath them to do the damage, you will almost never get hit with it. But I must caution you, when he slams his head down, he brings his head closer to his body than you would normally think. It's not actually extended that far out, so you may still get hit with if you're being a little too overzealous with your placement and so on. But with that being said, everyone, that's pretty much him, how he fights. These attacks are pretty wild. I do love this monster. It's amazing to fight. It's a breath of fresh air, because flying wyverns are so boring, and he has so much stuff going for him. He probably has a couple other attacks. Like, I know there's this one attack where he kind of like zooms his body in one direction, zooms it in another direction. You should be able to see it. I mean, it's basically a specialized running charge tackle attack that most monsters have, but again, it's specialized because he's an Astalos and so on and so forth. But yes, Astalos is pretty wild. Speaking of being wild, his gear is freaking great. I'm gonna tell you right now, get as much as you can. I didn't get any because I was on a time limit, but if you can, I recommend getting it, because this gear works well with basically any particular set. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention off the top is that Astalos' armor is very akin to how it was back in the day. Its most signature ability, or its signature ability, was chain crit. Now, I must caution you, chain crit works differently in this game than it did back in the day. Back in the day, it sounds exactly what's on the tin. The more times you attack the monster in succession, your affinity would increase. So you attack him once, twice, 3, 4 times, and then after that, your affinity will increase. So you go from like no affinity to like plus 50 or something like that. It was pretty nuts. A lot of people who like real heavy meta builds ran it. In this game, it's a little different. What it does is same thing. You have to hit it X number of times, and once you hit it X number of times, you get the full-on stat increase. But what it does in this game, it actually increases your attack and your elemental attack. So the more you hit the monster, the higher your attack will go and higher your elemental attack will go. And at the end of the full chain of 5 attacks, you get a huge stat increase that I believe still follows you throughout the rest of your attacks until you miss or something like that. Still pretty cool. Great for like dual blades or weapons who actually hit very often. Granted, the stat boost, the stat increase works differently for each weapon. So play around with what you have to see what it really does. After that, you're looking at stun resistance, which is actually really great because I mean, stun resistance, it just means you will never get stunned. You kind of have to love to see that. Stamina surge is great because of course increase your stamina recovery, so that way it's actually super fast on the recovery. Power prolonger for long sword, dual blades, charge blade, intake blade, guys who actually have like installs, if you will, it lasts longer. Obviously, speed sharpening is great because of speed sharpening. Razor sharp is great because it halves the speed. Well, not really. Like you have a 50% chance your weapon to not lose sharpness when you hit something. So I guess you can say it halves your speed in which your weapon loses sharpness or whatever. Spare shot for bows and thunder attack for elements. See, gear is pretty great. You can mix and match certain things. You can just put your own favorite decorations on the set and just be good. You know, that's kind of what I did. What I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet, but I already made some decorations I kind of want to put on here. Its weapons are fantastic. Since it's a flagship monster, it has a weapon for every particular category. You're looking around like 300-ish attack. I think the lowest end is like 280 or something like that. But you're looking at really decent sharpness. Excuse me. Pretty good sharpness. It has like natural white and a good chunk of it. Pretty decent element and plus 20 on the affinity, which falls in line with the way his weapons work back in the day. I would recommend using these things over that of Zenogre personally. This is my personal opinion. I would use these over Zenogre because they get the element, you get the affinity, and the raw is roughly the same. Okay, quickly to recap. Astalos is a great monster. He came from the 4th generation, a generations monster, if you will, because he was. He's a flagship monster, so if you're trying to say, well, if you're trying to get one of the weapons that he has it for you. Flagship monsters have weapons in every category. It's great to know. He hits pretty freaking hard. He is of the thunder element, but he's very susceptible to that of ice. Now, if you're following in line with how the game is normally played, you just fought an ice monster who has amazing ice weapons. Use those weapons to do the damage you want to do to this man. You're going to be in great hands. Outside of that, you absolutely want to hit him in the head, so that way you can do the absolute most damage, but don't stray too well, don't get in the head too much because you might get hit with the lightsaber, one of his most potent attacks. If you get hit with it, you're going to take an absolute metric ton of damage. Try not to block it either because it has like piercing or penetrating abilities or capabilities. By that I mean it has the means to penetrate your defenses and still do a metric ton of damage. It hits pretty freaking hard if you get hit with it raw. Even if you block it, you're still going to take like what, 20-30% maybe. So don't really block it. Try to avoid it. You can avoid it by being up underneath his body. You can avoid most of his attacks by being directly up underneath the body. But remember, if you're going to be up underneath his body, he does have one particular attack that's kind of wonky. He has the tail. He'll jump up, like poke at you with the tail, slam the tail into the ground, then shoot off a huge discharge area. Not a huge, but a small discharge of electricity underneath him. So he tries to condition you with that particular attack. However, I still recommend staying up underneath him because for the most part, between the laser beam, the giant slam down from the sky, and then the tail, you can kind of like work around that. He barely does the giant slam from the sky. The tail is what he'll do more often than not. And for the laser beam, well, the lightsaber off the top of his head, remember, just stay closer to the back legs and not so much towards the front because he can still probably chip you out with the lightsaber. Other than that, the man is he's a great monster, okay? He will probably take you a time or two to actually fight, or to probably get right. By that I mean maybe a card or two. In this particular current gameplay, I've actually carded twice, but that's because I'm using switch axe, and I'm not a switch axe user by any means. I literally cannot remember the last time I used switch axe. So I'm in here just swinging, pressing buttons, just doing whatever I can. Which, if anything, I'm letting you all know that, hey, it's possible to go in here and still win, even if you don't know 100% what you're doing. But if you have the means to adapt and understand how monsters fight, you're going to be in relatively decent hands. Hopefully this video finds you all well, and this guide actually prepares you to fight this monster in particular. If not, then I'm sorry, I failed at my job. But I'm really trying my best to actually give you guys the tips and tricks you need to actually come out on top. But with that said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Thank you so much for watching. Astalos is a really cool monster. I really like fighting this guy. I mean, he's clearly one of the coolest monster designs ever. I mean, he's a dragonfly dragon thing, you know what I mean? And his attacks are so freaking wonky and dope. His gear is amazing. I mean, if the gear isn't like really great, because it usually is, it looks fantastic. I mean, I'm using its lance right now, And I'm gonna keep it a buck with you guys. I'm probably gonna keep running lances and gun lances until whenever, because me trying to use other weapons I'm not very familiar with, it makes these hunts very, very long. So I have to cut huge swaths of it off so that way I can fit it in the video. But yeah, enough of the rambling. Thank you all for coming in, kicking in, watching at the end of the video, because after I say it's been your boy blah blah, I just ramble about whatever the heck. We are going to be having a couple of monsters coming out for this week, so if you guys are watching these as they come out, expect another video the following day and the day after that. I have the Sergios and the Espanus, that monster, you know the one I'm talking about. I got those 2 videos coming out to you guys day after day. I'm trying to get a video out to you guys every single day this week. I already have the pre-recorded footage. I just have to talk over the commentary, then edit up a little bit and just kind of push it out. But yeah, take care everyone. It's been your boy Peace, eat some chicken. I will see you all in the next one. We stream not this weekend because unfortunately I'm working, so we're gonna stream the following weekend. So no stream this week. I am going to use more of that time to just make more videos, because I have to make videos before, what's the one, Lucent comes out. I want to catch up to date and then get you guys when Lucent comes out. Oh, also Gormagala for Saturday. We got Gormagala on Saturday. But yeah, peace out everyone, take care.